Hello, and welcome back to another one of our Museum from Home programs. Today, we are excited to take a look at some of the many questions that we get asked each and every year at the 1774 Alexander home site. These mention just a couple of the things that we talk about on our tour, just a couple of the different questions that we typically get from visitors each year. But there are tons more out there. So if you have a question that you want to know more about, tell us in the comments. We'd love to do another video in the future that looks at some of these other questions that our visitors, particularly our virtual visitors, are having. For our first set of questions, we're joined by Janet Pyatt of the Backcountry Peddler Mercantile in Salisbury, North Carolina. Janet is going to be helping us learn, what did people use for underwear in the 18th century?
Jody is wearing typical clothing for men and boys, or boys over the age of about 6 or so, in the 18th century. The foundation garment is a shirt. This shirt is made of linen, and it goes all the way down, not to his knees, but about there. It's very long because, frankly, as far as we know, the shirt was all the underwear. Yeah, for most men. And the shirt was considered underclothing. You didn't often go about in just a shirt the way we would today.
Well, so I guess we better get you dressed, huh?
Yeah, we might want to do that.
Might be good.
Of course, he is wearing breeches already.
What kind of shoes did people wear in the 18th century?
Oh, we'll move on to shoes. Jody's shoes are very typical of 18th century men's or women's shoes. And they can be black or another color. There's the tongue, and in addition to the tongue, as we're familiar with, there are 2 pieces of leather that overlap each other into the buckle. And as you can see, women's shoes are very similar.
Why are women's skirts different lengths?
Another question that I'm often asked is about the length of my petticoat. Why isn't it all the way to the floor or to my ankle? Well, in another century, everyday dresses would be that long. But in the 18th century, it was very typical for skirt lengths to be about 6 inches above the ankle. And there's some reasons for that. Have you ever tried to do a lot of work in a dress that's down to your ankle? You step on it. It gets so in the way. In the 18th century, it seems that the harder the work, the shorter the petticoat.
For our next set of questions, we're journeying into the kitchen with Education Associate Ian Pasquini as he explains how people made food and stored food in the 18th century. How did people cook food without a modern oven?
So this is a Dutch oven. Now this is a very heavy, large example of a Dutch oven, but this is what you're going to use to do the majority of your baking. I mean, anything that you would bake inside of your oven, these days you might think like a frozen pizza or something. Back then they're going to do a lot of pies, cakes and stuff like that. So when you look at this, you can put coals underneath of and on top of this. You see, you pull it off, there's a lot of room in there for you to put different edible, delicious things, and then you put your coals on top of it, and that way you have even heat coming from the top and the bottom of this apparatus.
How did people store food before the invention of plastic containers?
And this is our Gourd Tupperware, so you can see, pull the lid off right here and look down inside. We got some flour, and this flour is years old. If we sifted it, we could still use this flour today because this is insect and rodent repellent as well as moisture resistant. So it's going to keep your dry goods stable for a very long time.
Thank you for supporting all of these programs throughout the year this year. 2020 has certainly been interesting for everyone across the board, including us here at the Charlotte Museum of History. We hope that you will consider helping us continue to tell Charlotte's story, continue to share Charlotte's history, and the history of all of the people who have called Charlotte home over the last 250 plus years here in the Queen City. If you are able, please consider making a donation. All you need to do is visit charlottemuseum.org/donate to be a part of our end of year campaign. Thank you for continuing to engage with us. Thank you for being a part of our programming this year, and we look forward to continuing to be here for you in 2021.